Yes. So, hello everyone. Uh, Today my topic is an intuitive approach to real inner product spaces. So, uh, I first want to say a brief that when we study inner product spaces, there are a lot of things which we just study symbolically, which are defined by using inner products, and we just go ahead. So today I will try to give intuitive approach to those things. I will try to show that how we can eventually intuitively reach to those definitions. So to start with, we will quickly see the definition of an inner product space. So suppose that V plus dot is a vector space over the real numbers, and a function, this is a function suppose from V cross V to R, which have some following properties. And the properties are, if we take any vector x from the vector space V, then this functional value at the point x comma x will always be greater or equal to 0. And this value will be equal to 0 if and only if x is equal to 0. The second property says that you take any two vectors x, y, then you can apply this function in any order to those vectors and you will be getting the same answer. The third one is, if we take any three vectors x, y, z from the vector space, then if we do this x plus z and y, we apply the function to, then it actually splits. It gives us xy and the image at xy plus the image at zy. And the final property says that if we take any real number c and any two vectors x and y in V, then this thing becomes this. I'm not reading it. So now if this such a function exists, then this function will be called with these properties. This function will be called an inner product. And the vector space then together with this inner product will be called an inner product space. So now we already have, actually in our discussion we will be only looking at R2, and we will be growing our intuitions from there, and then we will generalize our ideas. So R2 with dot product is something which we know from very beginning. And so there also, in fact, there are many ideas are defined previously, like that of an inner product. The dot product itself is an inner product in R2, and we know that it's defined in this way, that if we take any two vectors x and y and whose coordinates are this, then x dot y is defined in this way, x1 y1 plus x2 y2. Similarly, there is concept of length also. If we take any vector x, which is ordered pair x1 x2, then its length we write it in this symbol, we call it norm of x sometime, and we define it in this way, square root of x1 square plus x2 square. And similarly there we have notions of projection, angle, etc. So what we will be doing is we will be seeing these ideas into general inner product spaces. How can we bring these ideas to a general inner product spaces? So let us start with inner products. First of all, see this picture. In this picture, I have taken in R2 only, I have taken two vectors x and y, and the first vector is ordered pair x1 x2 and the second vector is y1 y2. The end points I'm naming them as a and b respectively, and suppose the angle between them is theta. Then from basic trigonometry we know that we can apply law of cosines to this triangle. I've actually joined these two edges, these two vertices actually, a and b, and so I've got a triangle with the angle theta. So now I can apply law of laws of cosines to obtain something like this. This is something known to us. Now, if you look at these terms AB, OA, OB, and if you look at this picture, you can see that these terms are actually known to us. Like, what is AB? AB is this length, the length of this line segment, and this is actually a vector, AB vector. So we are, by AB we are meaning the length of that vector. Now do you know that what is this AB vector? From geometry we know that it's B minus A. So y1 minus x1 and y2 minus x2. So what is its length then? We know how to calculate length of a vector: square root of y1 minus x1 square plus y2 minus x2 square. Okay. So in this way we can also calculate the lengths of OA, OB, and in this way we can get these terminologies. I think it's clear. Now if we put these things in this previous equation and we simplify, I don't want to simplify in the screen because it will be getting messier then. So I am skipping the simplification. So we'll be getting something like this. This is the simplified form of the previous law of cosines. And now if you see that here, all these terms are actually have names in R2. This term is x dot y. This term is the length of x vector. This term is the length of y vector. So this precisely gives us this equality. Okay. So any two vectors x, y we take, for that x dot y is length of x into length of y into cos theta. Now see, in R2 this can be a geometric view of inner product or the dot product at least, but that dot product of two vectors is multiply their length and multiply the cosine of the angle between them. But this is not that much geometric. So let us investigate a bit further. See, I'm bringing that picture again, just I have added something. See, from this vector x, I have just drawn a perpendicular to the vector y. Okay, this is a perpendicular, and see, this is the vector x, so its length is norm x or length of x simply. And by trigonometry, we know that this line segment has length norm x into cos theta. Is it okay? If it is okay, then we see, and actually we know that this is what? This is the projection of x on y, as we know in R2. Okay. So this vector, the projection of x onto y, has length norm x into cos theta. That is what I have written here. So now I'm going to use a symbol for projection, because you see that projection of x on y is a big thing to say all the time. So I'm using this symbol. Projection of x on y is this. If you have difficulty in remembering this, you can remember this in this way, that f of x. So this is p of x, projection of x on y. Okay. Anyway, but I will be further, when I will mention this symbol, I will be telling you the meaning also, so don't worry. So what we see is this, that norm x cos theta is the length of projection of x on y, and similarly the length of projection of y on x, if we draw a perpendicular here, then that length will be norm y cos theta. So to summarize the things, what did we get? In R2 with dot product, we are getting this equality, but this inner product stands for the dot product. So inner product of xy is norm x, norm y cos theta, and that we can write it in this way, that length of x, norm x, into norm y cos theta is length of projection of y on x, or similarly in this way also, that length of y into length of projection of x on y. All right. So this is going to be our idea of inner product in a general inner product space. Please understand, whenever we take a general inner product space V with some inner product, then by saying that inner product of xy, we will geometrically think in this way, that inner product of xy is the length of x multiplied by the length of projection of y onto x. Okay. Or similarly this. Now, this may seem not very much satisfying to you, but we will actually see that how the ideas comes from this interpretation of inner products. So let's go on. So our inner product approach is paused here. Now let us come to the discussion of length and see how it comes from inner products. So lengths are also called norms. So I'm using that. Now suppose, actually I want to just say that inner product of xy we saw, and there is a special case of inner products. As you can see here, that what happens if x equal to y. Okay, so if x equal to y, then our this interpretation of inner product becomes something like this: length of x into length of projection of x onto x itself. Now I have shown a vector x only. Now what do you think? If I project the vector x onto x itself, then what will I get? See, it's very natural, and you can think of it that if I project the vector x onto itself, then I will get the same vector x, because I'm doing nothing actually. Okay, so projection of x onto x is x itself. Therefore, there in this area, projection of x on x, I can replace this by x, which I have done here. So see, inner product of xx simply becomes length of x times length of x, that is norm x the whole square in the notation, and therefore norm x becomes the square root of inner product of xx. And this is the definition of length which we use in an arbitrary inner product space. So in this way, in an arbitrary inner product space, you can bring the concept of length of a vector. Okay. So after discussing length, I'm going to discuss projection in an arbitrary inner product space only. But for doing that, first let us see what are projections in R2. Okay, first get motivated from there. See, suppose I have two vectors x and y in R2. Okay, what I do for projecting, okay, I wish to project this vector x onto the vector y. Okay, so for projecting that, what I do is first I extend the vector y in both the sides to get a straight line. I've done it here. You can see I have extended it in both the sides. Now what I will do is I will draw a perpendicular from this point, the tip of x vector, to this straight line, the extended y vector. Okay, and suppose this point meets at the point P, the perpendicular meets at the point P, then I get this vector. I join the point P with the origin to get this OP vector. And this OP vector is what we know as the projection of x onto y. Okay, I'm just drawing a perpendicular, and this vector I'm getting, this is the projection in R2. Now with this picture in mind, we will see how we can define projection in an arbitrary inner product space. So this is the discussion of projections. So suppose let us take two vectors x and y from an inner product space V. Okay, I just want to mention one point. See, when we were doing the projection in R2, we were drawing this line segment, isn't it? This line we were extending actually. So what is this line? If you think, this line is actually joining the point y with the origin, and that is the straight line, the line that passes through y and origin. But now can you think that when can we draw this line? It turns out that not every time we can draw this line. Y needs to be a non-zero vector, then only we can draw. So it feels, and obviously if we are projecting x on y, it feels like y should be a non-zero vector. Okay, so when we will be discussing about that, we will take the assumption with this picture in mind. We will take the assumption that y is non-zero, right? So and if you are not very much satisfied that why are we assuming y is non-zero, then in a minute I will be giving you one more intuition for this assumption. So for now, let us go ahead. See, now we want to determine what the projection is with this picture in our mind. See, what is projection? Projection is actually a vector. So intuitively, we know that it has a magnitude and direction kind of thing. So let us go one by one. Do we know magnitude of the projection vector? See, we are now at present, we are in an arbitrary inner product space. So we don't know that any other notions, we only have notion of an inner product and notion of length. So if we want to say magnitude of a vector, we have to say in terms of inner product and lengths only. So can you think, or can you maybe remember that do we have some relation which connects inner product with length of projection? We actually have, and that is this, our basic idea of inner products. See, inner product of xy is length of y multiplied by length of projection of x on y. So from this equation, I can get intuitively, I can get what the length of projection of y should be in terms of inner product and length. Okay. So simply, I will get this length of projection of x on y is inner product of xy by norm y. Now you see that here at this point, I need y to be non-zero, because norm y should be non-zero, and that happens if and only if y is non-zero, right? So it's justified our assumption. Well, now we got the length of this OP vector, right, which is inner product of xy by norm y. Now what about the direction of OP vector? Okay, what do we need to determine OP vector? We know what is the length of OP vector. We just need an unit vector in the direction of OP vector. If we get a unit vector, then we can multiply that with this, and then we will be getting the projection vector. Now, do we know a unit vector? How will you figure out a unit vector in the direction of OP vector? See, first of all, OP vector and Y vector are, they have the same directions, right? That is why it's enough to get a unit vector in the direction of Y vector only. Now, can you think of a unit vector in the direction of Y vector? Simple, right? It is y by norm y. You just divide, what we do in what we have been doing in our physics courses, that you just divide the vector y by norm. Actually, there is no notion of dividing a vector by scalar, but you know what I mean. You multiply 1 by norm y with this y, the scalar multiplication. So this is a unit vector in the direction of projection of x on y. So we know what is the length of the vector and a unit vector. Now, how do we get the projection vector itself? We just multiply it, right? Length of projection and multiplied by unit vector. And this is actually a scalar multiple. This is a scalar and this is a vector. Okay. So we get this, and when we multiply, see, norm y square is inner product of y by our definition of norm y, right? So this becomes the projection vector. And thus, and you will see that this is the definition of projections of vectors onto some other vectors in an arbitrary inner product space. This is how it comes. Okay. So after projections, we are going to talk about angle in an inner product space. So first of all, what we will be doing is, of course, taking two vectors x and y from V. And now see that when you think of angles between two vectors in R2, first of all, we cannot always measure angle between two vectors in R2, right? What happens if any of them is zero vector? Then it's a point, then there is no meaning of angle between a line and a point, right? So let us choose x and y to be non-zero. Again, if you are not satisfied with this assumption, then we are going to see a motivation that why do we need this assumption. Okay, but for the time being, let us take this assumption. Now in R2, the thing is, why I have written this equation. See, see, you are in a general inner product space, okay, and you intend to define angles. Till now, what do you have in a general inner product space? The notion of inner product, the notion of length, and the notion of projections. So if you want to define a new thing, you have to define that thing using your previous knowledge only. So you want to define angles, so you have to define angle using the notion of inner products only. So can you connect angle and inner product in some relation? At least in R2, we saw that we already have that connection, that x dot y is equal to norm x norm y into cos theta. This is a connection that connects inner product and length with angles. Okay. And now, first of all, let us rephrase this in terms of an arbitrary inner product space. So in an arbitrary inner product space, this will be the equation. See, I have written it is just an intuition, because we cannot say that this equation is true in an arbitrary inner product space, because till now we haven't defined what is cos theta in an arbitrary inner product space. Okay, but what we can do is we can use this equation to define theta. So let us summarize. Suppose x and y are two non-zero vectors in an arbitrary inner product space V. Then we define the angle between them to be a real number theta, which satisfies this. Theta is defined to be cos inverse of inner product of xy by norm x norm y. Now there are some questions. Now I have defined it in some way, in some intuitive way only, but still the question is that whether this will always be defined, because the way I was saying, I was so confident. So it seems that given any two non-zero vectors, there will be some angle between them. But what is the guarantee? Because you see, cos inverse of these things, see, cos inverse of real number always doesn't exist. Suppose cos inverse of 2, cos inverse of 31, they doesn't exist. Okay, because you're not going to get any real number theta so that cos theta equal to 31, because cos theta is always less or equal to 1. So not all real number can sit here. So if we are claiming that theta is this, what is the guarantee that this will be defined always? So I leave this for you to explore, that you just see that when is cos inverse of z defined. Suppose you find that cos inverse of z is defined if and only if z satisfies some property p. Then you check that whether this quantity also satisfied that property p. Then only you can say that cos inverse of this is defined. So try to see that, but I'm not going further. But this is the question that we have in our mind. Does this always make sense? So I leave that for you. And the next question is, even if it makes sense, we know that cos is a periodic function. So even if it is defined, it will have infinitely many values. Okay. So it's like computing a argument of a complex number. You have infinitely many values. What do you do to get rid of that problem of infinitely many values? You just fix some particular range for theta. That is what we are going to do. We will take theta between 0 to pi, and then you can prove, or we can see that theta will exist uniquely in this interval. Okay, so you can think over this. Now what we are going to do, see, here we have defined the angle between two non-zero vectors in an inner product space. Now after defining angle, with angles something inherently comes, and what are they? The concept of parallelism and the concept of orthogonality or perpendicularity. Okay, if I want to phrase it mathematically, then this looks something like this, that theta is 0, or theta is pi also you can say, and this is parallelity, and perpendicularity is this, theta is pi by 2. So I'm not going to look into the case theta equal to 0. I will be looking at the case theta equal to pi by 2. It is really of special interest. Okay, and so that for that reason, and it's very important, for that reason we actually define it separately, that suppose x and y are two non-zero vectors, we say that they are perpendicular or orthogonal to each other if the angle between them is pi by 2. Now let us try to see what happens if two vectors are orthogonal. Suppose x is orthogonal to y, then what do we get? by the definition, it happens if and only if the angle between them, let us call it theta. So theta is pi by 2. Okay. And that happens if and only if cos theta is 0, because theta is lying in closed interval 0 to pi. So theta is pi by 2 if and only if cos theta is 0. Okay. And as per our definition of cos theta in an inner product space, we can say this. We define theta to be cos inverse of this. So cos theta will be equal to this thing. And if cos theta is 0, then this is equal to 0. Now we can take the denominator to the other side to make it disappear and make it simpler. And we are getting this. So two non-zero vectors are perpendicular if and only if the inner product between them is 0. And often we define orthogonality with this definition. And this is how it comes. Okay. Okay. Now we will be seeing something which is now means till now we defined all the concepts. Now let us see something. Suppose in R2 only we take two perpendicular vectors x and y. And what I intend to do is I want to project this vector x onto y. Do you remember how do we do that in R2? We first extend the vector y in both the sides like this. And now we draw a perpendicular from this point x onto this extended straight line. But what happens if you draw a perpendicular? See, the vector x is already is a perpendicular. So if you draw the perpendicular, it coincides with x. And see, the tip of the perpendicular is the origin itself. So therefore the projection is 0. Therefore we can see that in R2 the projection of a vector onto some perpendicular vector is 0. Now we can feel like this can happen in an arbitrary inner product space also. Let us try to see that. Suppose x is orthogonal to y, okay, then what do we know? That projection of x on y is this by our definition. But see that it is given x is orthogonal to y, so for that reason inner product of xy must be 0, and that means that the projection is 0, the 0 vector, and this is as we expected, right? And also there are several other ways also to see this, like you can say inner product of xy is length of y into length of projection of x on y. Now it is given that x and y are orthogonal, therefore inner product of xy will be 0. Therefore you get this equation. Now as I am saying x and y are orthogonal, I am measuring the angle between x and y. That means x and y must be non-zero by the definition of angles. Therefore y is non-zero in particular, so length of y is non-zero, so you can cancel it. So you get length of projection of x on y is 0, and a vector has length 0 means the vector itself is the 0 vector, right? So in this way, this last example I showed you because I wanted to say that you thought some geometrical thing in R2 and you actually generalized it in an inner product space with your intuition. So you can do this, you can think of various properties of vectors in R2 and you can try to see that which are true in an arbitrary inner product space. Like in particular, I encourage you to see what is the relation between orthogonality and linear dependence. If you know the geometric picture of linear dependency of vectors, then please try to discover that. It's fun. So that's all for today. Thank you. And I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, right. I am just stopping the recording.